Hey guys, I am going to quickly go over um, the reading for this article so that in case some people are um, struggling to really read it, I will go over it briefly, kind of scan over it, get the important pieces. All right, so we're going to click onto this in the exploration piece, and we're going to go to this article. And it's really just about the ships and the boats. And I'm not even going to go all the way through to the end because it's really about the early boats and how exploring with early boats was very difficult, probably. So the first boats were made thousands of years ago. Ships and boats are used for travel by the armed forces for our defense, for fishing, for transporting cargo between countries, and for leisure sports and relaxation. Three-quarters of all goods carried from country to country must cross oceans and sea ships and boats. So, boats have been a major part of our world since thousands of years ago, even. Many thousands of years ago, a raft made by tying several logs together with creepers was the first kind of water transport that a person could steer. Later, people made the first real boats by hollowing out logs. A frame boat built like a basket and covered with animal skins was another very early boat. A coating of tar kept the boat watertight. We would assume these boats were not intended to explore for long regions. In 4000 BC, boat builders in ancient Egypt used reeds to build what were probably the first sailing boats. The Egyptian reed boats had a mast and sails and were used on the River Nile. The Egyptians, and by 2500 BC, the Egyptians were building wooden boats that could sail across oceans. So now we are doing some major exploring. From 1550 BC to 300 BC, the Phoenicians, people from ancient civilization of Canaan, now Lebanon and Syria, used the galley, a man-powered sailing vessel, to travel and trade and fighting with their neighbors. Now we're getting into the Vikings. In 1000 AD, Viking longboats. These ships had sails as well as up to 60 oarsmen who rowed the ship. The longboats were long and narrow, so were able to travel on the open sea as well as along rivers. And here we have a picture of the Viking longboats. By 1100 AD, Chinese junks were sailing boats with a rudder for steering the boat, battens on the sails to give them greater strength, and watertight compartments long before Western ships had them. They were fighting and transport ships. 1450 and onwards, this is where we really see the advent of the modern caravel. Um, three and four masted sailing ships were in service for several centuries. These wooden ships were used as battleships by explorers and trade vessels carrying cargo from country to country. The caravel, a small, fast, and easier to maneuver kind of ship than earlier sailing ships, were built by the Portuguese. Prince Henry of Portugal, who became known as Henry the Navigator, is said to be the inventor. Maybe not true, but they were used by Portuguese to explore the coasts of Africa. So here's a picture of a boat that would have been sailed by Christopher Columbus. In the 1800s, fast sailing ships called clipper ships were built. They had long, slim hulls and tall masts. There's a clipper ship, and now we're kind of seeing what might have been in the first, the Revolutionary Wars and things like that, or not, but the Civil War and things like that. The first steamships to cross the Atlantic combined steam and wind power. By 1845, the first ocean-going liners made of iron and driven by a propeller were being built from this time. Propellers were on the bottom of the ship, underwater at the rear of the ship. And I'm going to stop there because although there is a lot of great, cool ships that are invented more and more and through the future, and you're welcome to continue reading them, exploration is really happening before the 1950s, because of, we still use some ships to get to Antarctica and things like that, more modern ships. But the real exploration we're kind of focusing on is from those early times all the way up into the 1800s, where major exploration was happening. Okay, thanks for listening.